Hello, my name is Hassan Sorrells, and this is the Leadership Lessons from the Great Books podcast shorts. There's no co-host on these shorts episodes. These are now around 2 to 4 minute, sometimes as long as 6 to 10 minute observations, ideas, thoughts, or rants about the literature, philosophy, psychology, and even the theology of leadership. Because listening to me talk about leadership for now around 2 to 4 minutes is still better than reading and trying to understand yet another business book. Even that business book your coworker won't stop raving about because it quote-unquote changed their life, but you can't see any difference in their leadership behavior. So how good could that author be? You can see evidence of its presence everywhere, but you can't identify what it is. So, let me identify it for you, because it comes along in many different forms. It comes along in the form of the cashier who used to count your change in their heads because they understood basic addition and subtraction, but now they can barely count back the change to you, as it is indicated on the digital display. It comes in the form of the customer service representative that used to call you back, or at the very minimum used to treat you like a real human being, and now places you in a queue and then hangs up on you after being on hold for around 45 minutes. It comes in the form of the handyman who used to understand and have experience in caulking a straight line, painting a straight line, or hammering a straight line, but now can't even do that. And when you point that fact out, the handyman can't correct it. It comes in the form of the teacher who used to teach the basics of reading, writing a sentence, and doing math problems, but now who is more focused on getting the kids to, quote-unquote, recognize their pronouns. It comes in the form of the financial advisor who used to understand how to sell you on a package or a policy, but who now blithely refers you to the website. It comes in the form of the engineer or the doctor who used to be able to design a robust bolt for a door on an airplane or confidently recommend a medication to cure a disease, but who are now more educated in considering and contemplating and talking with you about the quote-unquote racial disparities and their impacts between groups of people as their primary occupational focus. It comes in the form of the government employees or bureaucrats who used to care about the people of the nation state they were serving long enough to tell them the bald truth, but now don't seem to care about all that at all, and of course, still want to get paid. And I could go on with the examples, but you get the general drift of the idea. For many people, pointing out these inconsistencies in American human performance and the decline in American expectations about the quality of the aforementioned human behavior doesn't make a dent at all, actually, in their perception of how the world should work. For some people, when they are offered less, they accept less, rather than demand more. For some people, when they are offered less, they demand more. And such demands begin to sound like complaining, harping, or sound like the longing for a nostalgic past of human behavior and performance that might have never existed. Which, by the way, might be what you're thinking about someone like myself even bringing this up. But then for other people, a minority of a minority, when they are offered less, they decide to go out and create more for themselves, because they realize, tragically and with increasing horror, that they can't count on other people to do it for them. However, all these groups of people, regardless of where they may wind up on the spectrum, do want an explanation for why standards and performance currently are the way they are, where we are in the fourth turning. Why is there so much seeming incompetence from the cashiers at Lowe's or Home Depot all the way up to the office of the President of the United States of America? Many people will lay the explanation of such incompetence at the feet of evil, malice, or even rank stupidity. Because, at least by attributing a lack of standards and lowering performance to evil motives, there is, at the bottom at least, a seemingly rational motive. Others will lean towards Hanlon's razor as an explanation, which is, and I quote, "never attribute to malice that which is adequately explained by stupidity," closed quote. The rejoinder, of course, to Hanlon's razor is that there can't possibly be that many quote-unquote stupid people who graduated from academic institutions, worked their way up the greasy pole of bureaucracies, and who are now in positions of power telling us all what to do. The rejoinder is typically delivered along with a look of growing horror. But the fact is, we in America, in particular, at the levels of control over complex financial and social systems that operate a country, have allowed leaders to metastasize out of the ether who are indeed not stupid, not evil, but just incompetent. Not incompetent in climbing the pole or graduating with a fancy piece of paper in their hand, of course, but incompetent at understanding exactly and at a deep spiritual level and psychological level what the core responsibilities and accountabilities are in their leadership roles. And of course, if they are incompetent at executing on the core responsibilities and accountabilities of their leadership roles, while they have been granted control over the complex financial and social systems that operate our country, how close to failure, systemic, apocalyptic failure, are we actually as a nation sliding towards? And what type, what kind, what manner of radical change to human performance and behavior would be required from us all to reverse that slide from the level of the cashier at the dollar store all the way across to the teacher in the local school district and all the way up the hierarchy to the office of the President of the United States itself? What type of radical change indeed? Welcome to the final acts in the horror show of the crisis of incompetence in the United States of America at the end of our latest fourth turning. And well, that's it for me. Thank you for listening to the Leadership Lessons from the Great Books podcast today. And now that you've made it this far, you should subscribe to the audio version of this show on all the major podcast players, including Apple iTunes, Spotify, YouTube Music, and everywhere else where podcasts are available. There's also a video version of our podcast on our YouTube channel. Like and subscribe to the video version of this podcast on the Leadership Toolbox channel on YouTube. Just search for Leadership Toolbox and hit the subscribe button there on YouTube. And while you're doing that, leave a 5-star review if you like what we're doing here on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. Just go below the player and hit 5 stars. We need those reviews to grow, and it's the easiest way to help grow this show. And tell all your friends, of course, in leadership. By the way, if you don't like what we're doing here, well, you can always listen to another leadership show. There are several other good ones out there. At least that's what I've heard. All right. Well, that's it for me.